Good morning, everyone, and welcome to one more of our Sunday morning talks. Glad to be here. This is my first time here in 2022, so Happy New Year to everyone that is watching us. So before I start, just reminders, as we would like to call here, about our FSS fraternal assistance. As you're just seeing on the screen, sometimes we just need someone to talk, someone to just bounce our thoughts. So we are here for you. If anyone would like to have a conversation, get something out of the chest and just talk, we do have our volunteers that can schedule a time with you. Please reach out. You can reach out through our WhatsApp channels or with our email, welcoming@fsskaugary.ca. Please reach out to us. Even during the pandemic, and as you know, we were still in the virtual world and we cannot have face-to-face, but we do have those technologies that can help us to stay connected, stay together as one. All right. So to start, today I would like to bring the text from our daily bread, from our beloved Francisco Cândido Xavier by the Spirit Emmanuel. And the text is number 73. The title is Let Us Learn as Quickly as Possible. And the passage is from Paul, Corinthians. So then, just as you received the Lord Jesus Christ, continue to live in Him. As I mentioned, it's Paul, Corinthians, chapters 2, versicle 6. Among those who refer to Jesus Christ, we can identify two large, distinct groups: those who know Him through information and those who have received His benefits. The former have gotten their knowledge about the Master from books or the exhortations of others, although they are on their way to becoming like the latter, who have already received His blessings. It is especially to this latter group that one should speak of the gospel. How do we find the Lord on your journey through the world? Sometimes His divine presence manifests itself in the solution of a difficult human problem, in the restoration of bodily health, in the return of a loved one, in the spontaneous renewal of a common path so that new light dawns on one's mind. There are many people who are well informed about Jesus, and many have received His saving assistance. It is imperative, however, that the beneficiaries of Christ's blessings feel as much joy in this gift as they feel in the pleasure of service and witness to the faith. It is not enough for us to be showered with blessings. We must do our part in serving the gospel by heeding its sanctifying plan. Many tedious repetitions and much useless activity might be peculiar to minds that are merely informed. However, we who have received the infinite mercy of the Lord should learn as soon as possible to adapt ourselves to His sublime will. So let us pray. So let's connect and elevate our thoughts to our Father God, to our Master Jesus, to each individual guardian angel from each one of us, to the spiritual team, to the superior spirits that are responsible and helping us with this beautiful work here at FSS in Calgary. And first, let's be grateful for all the opportunity. Let's be grateful for all the blessings that we have received, we continue to receive, and we are confident and we trust that we'll be receiving in the future with this work and with the divine mercy that is here to help every single one of us to thrive, to accomplish what we came here to accomplish. Let's be grateful for this second loving home that is our FSS. This home where we find the fraternal feelings and sentiments from our brothers, incarnated and discarnated. This temple where we can search for information, but not only that we can start with small step-by-step, small steps to apply all the knowledge that we acquired in our daily lives. Let's ask for the spirits to bless us, to help us with the reflections, and to help us to have one more enlightening Sunday morning, where we'll be talking about today what is habit and what habits we have been cultivating in our lives. Let us have a peaceful morning with good reflections. So be it. Thank you, Victor. All right. So today we will be talking or reviewing this topic about habits. The question here that we offer for reflection is, which habits have you and have I and have all of us been cultivating in our life? So today we'll be reflecting of what is habit, what is the importance of habits in our life now as I am Luis, what is the importance of habits in my future lives, and more important, what is the importance of habits for my mortal spirit? What do I need to do? How do I acquire? What is a little bit of the process? And who do I look up to if I would like to build or would like to improve or would like to identify some of the habits that I should keep, I should continue doing, and some of the habits that maybe I'm invited to change. And as we know from the Spirit's book, our motto and guide is Jesus. So we'll try to identify how can Jesus and how do I look up to Jesus and some of his disciples and some of the examples of spirits that were here in our earth and have provided us with some habits that we are invited to consider and trying to adopt in our lives. And as we know that God, in its characteristics of being perfect, how do habits have to do in terms of the divine laws? Should habits be aligned with the divine laws? And as we know, if the divine laws are our guidelines, our roadmaps, the importance for us to take a look at those divine laws and do a check and perform an assessment. Are my habits aligned with the divine laws? Upon that assessment, if we can, in our conscience, identify that's it. I'm reaping the benefits of those habits. I'm seeing the positive and healthy results in my life. Then we can conclude or have a good idea that I am in the right path. So that's kind of a summary of what we'll be talking about or reviewing today. And yeah, So some of the references, or where did I take this material from? As many of you might know, I really appreciate Arthur Valadares with his reflections, and he does have a talk available at the NAP Paulo de Tarso, the Spiritual Center in São Paulo, that is all about habit. We're going to use a few questions about the Spirit's book, and a few books from our beloved Chico Xavier. First, as you might know, Thought and Life. There is a specific, if I'm not mistaken, I will show later, chapter 20. There's a whole chapter dedicated to this topic, habit. The Consoler from Emmanuel as well. Ceifa de Luz, or Harvesting Light, by the Spirit Emmanuel, and Harvesting the Good by the Spirit Neo Lúcio. If we have a chance, I'm reading a new book which I shared with some of our friends called Minutos com Chico Xavier, or Minutes with Chico Xavier, where hopefully I will be able to point and narrow down of one habit that has been very close to my heart, and I think I would like to share some of the knowledge and how important it is to cultivate that habit, especially nowadays. Stay tuned. So first, Arthur starts kind of building up and giving some context and introduction about habit when he relates when he connects the power of building habits with the process of education. And if you think about it, Jesus being our biggest professor, if we want to call, and us, if we take the apprentice feeling, which is such an important virtue for us, we are in an education process journey every single minute of our life. And I would go a little bit beyond every single minute of our existence as an immortal spirit. So the connection of habit and education, it's very strong. And the importance of being aware of that educational process in our life is a key for us to identify and do the work that is required for us to become a better immortal spirit. And I can draw another connection, as many of us remember from Project Spiritizar. We have the triad, the triad, right? Where we have the knowledge, or the acquiring knowledge piece of our education as the first and a key step when we are in our transformation process. And then as we acquire, as we are aware of that knowledge, we shift, or we go to the next stage of about feeling it, right? And applying it, that knowledge, into our lives. And then once that becomes something that we'll see a little bit later, it becomes a second nature to us, because we understood, we apply, and now we just do as a normal thing or as a habit. We start to living it. So let's see what Kardec says about this educational process and the power of building habits. So this is a comment that Kardec mentions in question 685A from the Spirit's book. Kardec says, education, not the intellectual education, but moral education. But not moral education through books, but moral education that consists in the art of forming character. Moral education that creates habits, because education is the sum of acquired habits. So here, Kardec already gives us, it's through the educational process that we will build those habits. Once we build those habits, we are forming that character that, if we think about what type of character we would like to be, is the character that follows or understands the divine laws and everything that's required from me as an immortal spirit to align with those laws, so I can be happy, right? Because the happiness is that process, not only that end state, not only that I'm going to acquire things, but how I'm going to be as an immortal spirit. And as many of us know, the Spiritism doctrine is one of the keystones, is one of the fundamentals that education, it is imperative, and we won't be able to achieve our goals, to transform ourselves, to improve our lives, if we don't take into consideration this education process. And we're not talking about the education as we know here in this earth, about getting a degree, learning a profession, or just acquiring some knowledge. That is that moral one that transforms my being, that transforms my spirit. But is that the only passage in the fundamentals of the Spiritism doctrine that the spirits mention through Kardec about education? No, there is a very popular and I might say well-known say or part from the Gospel according to Spiritism in chapter 6, where the Spirit says, Spiritists, love one another, the supreme law, love, justice, and charity. That is the first precept. Educate yourself is the second. So throughout all the fundamentals, the 5 books, I'm just mentioning the 2 ones here, the Spirit's book and the Gospel according to Spiritism, education is a key. Education is a part of our life, so we can harmonize ourselves within ourselves, harmonize ourselves within the environment, and more important, harmonize ourselves with God, with Jesus, and its divine laws. And we know that the laws are there just for our own benefit. Can you imagine if God was not just and wouldn't give us the guidance? We would be all lost, and we would be, what are the habits? What should I do? And we wouldn't have the same standard, the same fairness to all the spirits to follow. So here, a key fundamental that we are invited to take into consideration, so we can look at what am I missing, what do I need to change, so I can see what types of maybe better habits I would like to build. We have some good ones that are reaping good results, but there might be others that we are invited just to take a look and see how can we shift, so we can see some of the improvements, and we can reap the benefits of good happiness. So, and the education, as I mentioned, is eternal. It won't end, right? We have one piece, and we'd like to say maybe we are in grade 5, in grade 6, 2, 3, 4, 9 in this life. But there will be other steps of our journey, and as we know, God doesn't need to rush anything. He will give us the time that we need. He will give us as many opportunities as we need, so we can go through the grades and the process, just to use the analogy, so we can really learn, really finalize each piece of that education process, and we can really feel and see the benefits of that. And what's the meaning of habit? And here, this is from chapter 20, Thought and Life, from Emmanuel. Emmanuel says that habit is the accumulation of mental reflexes whose function is to induce our routine. I really like another person from Kardec Radio. Her name is Vanessa, and she's a scientist, and she studies the mental, our brain, and she I was listening to her talk about routine, and she was saying that Emmanuel, 50 years ago or 60 years ago, I'm not entirely sure when the book was written, but he was like so far ahead in understanding our brains, our minds, because here it's a lot of maybe literature, and we might be not misguided, but we might think that some of the habits are behavior. We just need to change our behavior. But Emmanuel is saying here that everything happens here in our thoughts. A behavior is just an output of what I had already thought. So everything starts in our minds. Everything exists in our minds first. And I also like to mention, Arturo one day says, when I was researching about the power of our thoughts, if we think about this earth, everything that is happening that we know in this incarnation was in God's thoughts before it became an earth. So everything starts there. So here is just to drive the point how important is for us to take a look at those mental reflexes or thoughts, because they will kind of guide us. They will dictate which path am I going to take when going through a situation. And the relationship between those paths into those mental reflexes in our habit is because when I'm subjected to a situation, I'm facing a challenge here, or I'm facing a blessing in another instance, my mind with my thoughts and all the baggage that I carry from this life, from many other lives that I had, when I face the situation, those habits will tell me, those thoughts will tell me, Luis, based on your past experience, if I use a very poor analogy, it's kind of my mind is faced with something and it Googles. It's like when Luis goes through the situation, what is the answer, or what has he been doing? So my mind find the paths that I've taken in so many lives, or even in this life with new habits that I acquired. So that is kind of this mental creation that we are conditioned. And because we've traveled, we went through those paths so many times, and that's why, again, we're facing those situations again, so we can learn if we need to continue doing it, or if we need to change. So here, just to drive again the point of the importance of taking into consideration our thoughts, because it's those thoughts that will tell us the habits that we've built with our past. And to continue with Emmanuel, and then he kind of explains a little bit more. We inherit thousands of years of repeated experience, each one similar to the other. Up to now, we have been like a boat carried away by a river of habits to which we have offered no resistance. So as I mentioned, we're so conditioned to some habits that most of the times, not all, but sometimes they're not aligned with the divine laws. And that's why we keep kind of repeating the same lesson. We have to write the same paper, or we have to take the same exam, because we're not getting the grade that we ourselves wanted us to have in those papers or exams, to use that analogy. So sometimes, and most of the times, we ended up not thinking about it because it's so automatic. And that's what Emmanuel is saying here when he says we have been like a boat carried away. That river, the flow is so rapid, is so fast that our boat just goes in and doesn't think, just go with the flow, right? And he says that we offer no resistance. And that is another important point for us to think about. If you're seeing the results that we're not expecting, the importance to reflect, the importance to take some time with Luis, with myself, and see, are those habits, am I in the automatic and I'm being carried away? Or how can I, if that is the assessment, how can I pause a little bit? How can I offer resistance in the sense of assessing it? Is that the right one? Am I following Jesus as my model and guide? And we'd like to say sometimes here, is that what Jesus would do in this situation? And there are some cases in our lives, and we see in society, that some of the individuals, we lost control. That bolt is madness, and we lost our address, the address of our immortal spirit, the address of our own existence, due to those not so good habits, and we started being driven by just the circumstances of this life in the present. So that's important for us to think about. What are those habits that might be the crazy boats, the boat that carried away? And if my boat is being carried away, how can I just push a little bit of the brakes, park a little bit to assess, not just stay parked, but revisit and see, how can I set up maybe a new goal to change that habit? How can I be a little bit more aware of myself to develop a habit that will be more beneficial? But Luis, you keep telling about the habits that are not good or not so good. What are some examples, right? And I think I can give some of my feelings and sentiments when going through what Kardec likes to say, the vicissitudes of our lives and let's say the challenges. And sometimes when we are hit by that storm, and we know that storm is just in a period of time so we can learn, some of the habits that I might face and our brothers and sisters might face as well, is the habits of discouragement, the habits of despair, the habits of withdrawal. It's like, too much, I can't, and I'll just give up. But is that what God gave to us in terms of God didn't give me the tools and the resources necessary? It's quite the opposite, right? God has given us all the seeds and everything that we required to go through those moments. However, I might have been doing or I might have had the habit of going to the despair first, right? The discouragement and withdraw first. But then if I'm aware and I pause and I say, okay, let's see, how can I change this course of action? Is how can I see this as an opportunity for improvement, so I can grow and I can learn with that moment. And as we know, this is as I mentioned, this is a fundamental step in our evolution. And I remember Victor did a whole series about fear. I did a little bit of fear, and one habit that I think I'm trying to change the meaning is sometimes the fear. And I'm kind of reading in this book with Minutes with Chico Xavier. The fear is so the habit of fear sometimes is ingrained in me, because as Alirio explained, the fear is because we don't want to have any frustration in this life, and we know that in this life, a life without frustration, it's an expectation that is we won't be able to have it, as we are in this trial and expiation world. So how can I change my habit of fear, and the fear being the kind of my go-to, my path in one situation? What can I do? What can I learn from the books, from people, and many resources that we have available, so I can course correct and I can change my habit of fear? So one example, after this, some of the reflections that I would like to leave with all of us is, which habits are we cultivating that assist us in fulfilling the divine laws in the pursuit of happiness? So those are the ones that we should keep, because we are seeing the benefits and they are aligned with the divine laws. And which happiness need to be revised so that we can fulfill the divine laws and continue to the pursuit of happiness? Which ones that we are invited to change? And here is sometimes we tell, oh, this is the invitation. This is what we are invited to take action on or to change. And our beloved Emmanuel, he, with all his brilliance, he kind of gives us. And Emmanuel, as we know, he's very direct, right? He's very keen into all the work and the exercise that we are invited to do. So he, in the book Harvesting Light, he has this explanation saying that we sigh for personal improvement. Like, we all aspire to, everybody, nós ansiamos for personal improvement. However, in order to achieve it, it is urgent not to forget the discipline that precedes the transformation. And here Arthur kind of breaks and gives us two key pieces of information just in that sentence. First is, I think it's fair to say that everybody sigh and everybody wishes to do some personal improvement, right? So this is kind of the goal. This is, everybody establishes our own goal, whatever personal improvement mean to each one of us. But how do we achieve that goal? This is the way. It is through the discipline. It is through the work. It is through all the effort that we, as an immortal spirit, is required to take. There is a way. There is a way that requires activities and work to get to that goal. And once we get to that goal, Emmanuel kind of explains, right in this other passage here from the Consoler, question 254, when he says, the popular saying considers that habit makes second nature, and we must learn that discipline precedes spontaneity, within which the soul can more easily achieve the goal of its redemption. The only way that if we, in facing a situation, that confidence, trust, empowerment, and all the habits that help us to navigate that situation, they will only be second nature. That's like, oh, okay, going through that. Here I know that fear is not the habit that that I'm invited. Here I just go. I just need to believe, do my part. There is a piece that is up to me. There is another piece that is that I believe God will give to us as long as I do all my part. So if that second nature only happens with work, with discipline. And Emmanuel, and as many of us might have watched the movie about Chico Xavier, he was so keen in the discipline and making sure that we do everything that is at our power with our strength to make it better. So we can remember those paths, those mental paths. Those paths, if they're not the best path, not the best journey that we would like to take, it's through that discipline that they will change them. And once we change them, they will become second nature. And those efforts, as Alito mentioned, we need to persevere. They need to be continued, right? They need to keep happening as we learn. And it goes actually beyond even the spiritual topic that we're talking. If we want to be a little bit more close to the material world, is even when habits with our body, habits with our diet, habits with our study, with our sleep, with our meditation, with our praying. The gospel, according to Spiritism, if we talk about pray and we talk about meditation, gives us a lot of information, a lot of things that maybe was a little bit we didn't understand. And the gospel, according to Spiritism, the Spiritism doctrine, kind of remove that veil and clarifies for us of what Jesus meant with that, and help us to build those habits. And the same way that we can do that, we can change some of the habits from our material existence, and vice versa. Those habits, they happened as a system. And we know that this body is a blessing and is a vehicle for us to go through the grades, to go through our college of life. And we are invited to take care of this system that is comprised of this body and our spiritual component. So here is Emmanuel telling us there is a way, there is a goal we can all set for us, and we set already before incarnating, and we will get there. We will be in that spontaneity. We will be in that second nature. However, it's up to us to define and do the work to get there. But some people might say, and this is a question from the Spirit book, there are people or persons who do good through a spontaneous impulse without having to struggle with any contrary sentiment. Like I was just describing, still the fear might be a habit in some situation. How come others don't have that habit? Do they deserve the same merit as those who have to struggle against their own nature and who manage to overcome it? How come those people do it without the struggles that I am facing right now? And the spirits, as you can imagine, will say, those who do not have to struggle have already made progress. Or in other words, those who do not have to struggle have already struggled, maybe, potentially, in the past. However, as Emmanuel mentioned, now it became second nature. They struggled and triumphed in the past. That is why good sentiments cost them no effort and their actions seem so easy. Doing good has become a habit for them. So we will get there. It's just a matter of time and a matter of us navigating this journey. I would like just to bring one habit that is kind of near and dear to my life at this point, and this is the habit of hope. Hope is such an important virtue for us to survive, and the Spiritism doctrine, especially Gospel According to Spiritism, Chapter 2, Item 5, the point of view, where it says that everything that we're going through at this time is just periodic, and there is a bigger and a better future awaiting for us. So the hope and all the virtues that come with, under, and along with this habit that is being kind of front and center for me is something that I would like to share, and kind of just not share, to bring the importance for us. If we have some mental paths or those mental reflexes that did not take into consideration hope, I think there is an invitation for all of us to bring that hope as a habit to practice, so we can kind of navigate some of the storms of our lives. And hope is kind of that patience, right? And the optimism, the optimistic patience that we are all invited to practice every day. There is, I think I've heard, I can't remember where I saw it, but there is a psychiatrist called Eric Taylor, and he said that the lack of hope is one of the most cruel symptoms of depression. And we know sometimes we believe that peace, that point in time, it will be forever. However, that habit alone in virtual, I don't want to define the hope as one single thing, but it's such a key piece. And to bring one example from our book, Renúncia, Renounce, I can't remember in English, Alcione says that living without hope is the worst of all evils. When we are especially when we are sincerely concerned about our spiritual enlightenment, we understand all the meanings of the things that are happening in our life. And that strengthens our lives, that stimulus for us to continue walk. In other passage, I think it's Emmanuel, or it's still Alcione, she mentioned that hope is like the moonlight, the light of the moon, especially in some dark and moments in our life. That is the balm of belief for us. And together with faith, it becomes the divine clarity of certainty. So I just want to bring the habit of hope for us to consider, to believe in that optimism that things will become better. And if we understand that period in that period in time of our lives, and we relay that hope habit, hopefully we'll be able to navigate and learn and change that habit of maybe despair, discouragement, fear, or withdrawal, and kind of go through as a learning mindset and get even more stronger. Just want to bring the hope habit for us to reflect. So here, I just want to mention, it's still a thought in life about the role of sometimes that we play when we choose not to learn. Let's see. So in general, Emmanuel says, in general, the human race leaves this vicious and recurring cycle of cherished ignorance and does not want to counteract it. We seek to deceive ourselves after birth, only to become completely disillusioned after death. Thus, we are imprisoned in the confines of an disillusion syndrome. Century after century, we return to tread the same road from where we were expected to go forward. So here, remember when I mentioned the crazy boat in the crazy river? Emmanuel brings an additional reflection, and sometimes, and I personally choose to include cherished ignorance, because sometimes we decided, with the law of our free will, we decided to stay in the ignorance state. We decided not to pause, not to take into consideration all the information, everything that's available to us, to change. Sometimes we decide, I'm going to stay in that way for however many reasons that we might find. However, if we decided to stay, we make the conscious decision that we would like not to enlighten my knowledge with new information. Emmanuel describes what we call this vicious cycle here. Because we make all the agreements and we are all excited when we are about to be born, we're about to incarnate it again, and then we choose the ignorance, and then after we discarnate, we are frustrated again. And then we do the same, and then we decided to stay in the ignorance, and then we are frustrated again. So here Emmanuel brings this point of the cycle of illusion and how it's important for us to break that cycle. To break that cycle and maybe go to a more virtual cycle where we aspire and we make the efforts so we can have a higher cycles of existence. What does that mean? The cycles where we put the effort that we could at that point, and we saw some of the results, and we made some of the efforts to be more active in that educational process to form a better character for each one of us. And he continues, however, we should not by any means disregard a constructed routine. Through it, people evolve in space and time to attain the resource that dignify their lives. Here, it's sometimes we might say, oh, it's just the bigger things. We just need to do a transformative process overnight. And we know that's not the best approach to take. It's the importance to work day after day in the small little things. The small invitation that prepare us for the bigger things. And Jesus has said, be faithful in the little things and you will be faithful in the bigger ones. It's for us to be at a minimum conscious. Do the exercise to change small habits. If I remember one day I read in the Gospel according to Spiritism that once we're back to life, in the meaning of every time that we sleep, so our soul goes and is free, and then when we wake up, that soul is again with my body. The first thing that the spirits guide us, it's a guidance. We're not saying they should do it, but if it makes sense to me, is to pray. So maybe now I'm praying before and after. So that is a small little piece of thing that I can change in my habit, which I can see some maybe better results as I navigate my day. And that can be in everything. As I mentioned, pray, maybe it's meditation, maybe there's something in the work, maybe there's something in the daily routines of the house chores. Whatever makes sense to any one of us. But it's in those small pieces that will become bigger, and a little bit bigger, and a little bit bigger, and we'll see the results. Another piece that I've thought, and I love analogies, and Artur is so good to do analogies, is an analogy of habit in our mental house. And this is a description from the book No Mundo Maior, or in the greater world, where one spirit called Calderário explains to another character how our mental house works. So the way this Calderário describes is, imagine, especially here in North America, we have our basement. In the basement, it's all the habits and the automatic impulses that we have already developed. It's kind of our subconscious brain. It sums up everything that we've achieved in our evolutionary process. And we know we don't go backwards in our evolutionary process. We might be paused, stayed at the same, and or move forward, but never back. So that is where everything that we achieved stays in our basement. Then, if we think about a ground floor, this is all our conscious. This is everything that we're living right now, our current achievements. It's where the effort in our will be kind of working there, going to the rooms, navigating the rooms, one room to another, to do the work and to achieve new goals. The roof is what he called the superconscious. The roof is all the ideals, all higher aspirations and superior goals. They're all there for us kind of to look and see where we can go. Arthur brings kind of reflection that the basement is kind of our past, the ground floor is kind of our present, and the roof is our future. But what's up with all that in terms of habits? What is the correlation? What is the exercise that I go from basement, ground floor, roof, ground floor, basement? So the exercise is we look at the roof. There might be thousands and numerous types of higher aspirations that we would like to achieve. The exercise is grab one, bring to the ground floor. Our effort and will do all the work. We'll learn. We'll use the discipline, the patience, and hope if somehow that work might be a little bit more, that required more effort from us and may pose more challenges. As we do the work, once that work is finished, ship to the basement, because that is a habit that will become a second nature. That's what the spirits had told us in question 894 that we just read. They went through all of this several times, and now it became all second nature. Imagine, sometimes we see here some basements and garages filled and full with stuff. I know it's material stuff, but just to paint a picture, our mental house, our basement, full of those divine habits that help us to be a better immortal spirit. In the reflection here, what ideals, what is in each one of us roofs or goals am I invited to pursue so I can work on develop them with effort and willingness to make them as a habit. And to kind of going to the finishing line, I love this passage from Neo Lucio from the book Harvesting the Good, where he says that the habit of studying the gospel by meditating on its lesson is a process of magnetizing our spirits to the higher spheres. So here Neo Lucio invites us to this habit of reading the gospel of Jesus, the gospel according to Spiritism. Because once we are there, and I think it was Victor one day says, when we're reading, for example, a book, let's say Emmanuel, a book, a romance by Emmanuel, you are connected to those spirits, and you are kind of in that vibration, and your thoughts are connected to what is the best resource for us to do the work and gather inspiration for us and open all the channels for us, intuition, for us to fertilize our soil with the best, with all the good spirits to help us to navigate whatever we need to navigate, as challenged or not as challenged as it could be. So the importance for us to have our thoughts, and also not only when we, of course, if you're reading the gospel and you're reading the books from from Spiritism, we are connected with the divine thought, with the divine knowledge. So there's no better resource for us to use as a discipline for us to improve ourselves. And to finish, I couldn't finish without talking about Jesus, our role model. And that's how kind of Emmanuel ends the habit chapter in Thought and Life, when he said that Jesus' apostleship becomes a resplendent set of reflections aimed at the redemption of the human way. He taught the virtue of simplicity when he began his pilgrimage amongst humanity that originated in the manger. His death on the cross taught us serenity, patience, and belief in the resurrection in the eternal life. So here and throughout the gospel of Jesus and Spiritism, we can see those habits that we are invited to search and solidify in us. Because we know that all the seeds of those good habits are all essential seeds that are within us. And if we take the mental house that we just described, can you imagine the mental house of Jesus? His basement is kind of the ideal basement that we would like to have for our mental house, because he went through all the things, and he has shown in examples, in words, in everything, the reference for us to search. So let's feed our souls with everything from that roof, from what Jesus has taught us, and hopefully we will, incarnation after incarnation, we will build and we will include more habits and elements, good habits and good elements in our basement. And just to leave with some reflections, again, what are the habits that we should keep doing because they are aligned with the divine laws and with our pursuit of happiness? Which ones do we need to change because they are not giving the happiness or the benefits we are looking for? And what are some of the things in the roof, the ideals and goals that we are invited to pursue and using our effort and willingness to make them as a habit? That's it. Thank you very much. I don't know if we have any questions. Let me just take a look here. Okay, Victor. Very important question. What sometimes we are blind with our habits, right? What can we do to shine some light? I think I would say if we are blind, and again, just personal answer, maybe a practice is, instead of assessing one or the other, why don't we do an assessment on everything, right? Why don't maybe we stop? And I remember one day Sandro was saying that when we are happy, sometimes we just don't think about it. Oh, it was all good, we won, in the sense of it's all good, it's everything that I was expecting, so we don't pause and reflect. We just pause more and reflect on things that are not so good. So maybe why don't we pause on everything, right? And say, does that, and I'll do that reflection every time. Is that aligned? Is that not aligned? And sometimes why don't we maybe talk to each other, right? And say, I went through this situation and this is what was the outcome? Any insights, or what does the doctrine in some of the books is telling us or guiding us in terms of reflections? What does it say that I can compare? If that is the reference, if the gospel is the reference, how can I find what I did, the reference, in if there is some gaps? But I'm so curious that one day, once we are all back here, we can talk about that blindness and how we can find some other alternatives. And I invite everyone that is on YouTube or Facebook or our channels or even in WhatsApp to share maybe one time that we were a little bit blind, and what is some of the mechanisms that someone used to make it not blind and identify. I'm not sure if I answered. It was just more of a rambling. Sorry. Okay. I think I'm gonna end with our final prayer. Okay. So let's continue with our thought, raised to our Father, raised to Jesus Christ, our Master, and to all the good spirits, as we just saw from Neo Lucio. When we read and we study and we practice the gospel, we are connected with the higher spheres. So let the higher spheres, let us do all the effort required to be in contact with those higher spheres, so they can help us, so they can guide us in finding potentially blind spots, or helping us identifying some of those habits, some of those mental paths that are not delivering or not producing the result that God and Jesus wish for us. Be thankful again for one more opportunity that we have here in our FSS to study and to be connected to our guardian angels, to God, to Jesus, and the entire spiritual team. And let's ask that we continue to have a blessed Sunday, that we continue to have a blessed week, an enlightened, serene, and, as we saw, a simplicity, as Jesus demonstrated us with his birth in the manger, that we can continue and we can look at that example and continue with the simplicity that is required from us. Let us practice the habit of hope, especially during the times that we are facing in this planet. Let hope be the light that help us to navigate some of the storms that each one of us are going through. And let's pray and ask for the spiritual team to continue to help us, to continue the work, to be this candle of light, of Spiritism, of Jesus, and of God here in Calgary. So be it.